Hello, this is a podcast where we will be looking at Animal Farm and Persepolis to compare both of the stories and see what it was like in the actual world during the revolutions. And we are going to compare the stories and see what's different, see what's similar. And I'm Tyler.
I'm Tegan.
I'm Dom.
And we are going to start off with a quick synopsis on Animal Farm.
Animal Farm starts as a pig named Major teaches all the animals animalism. The animals then revolt after not being fed after a few days, and that starts their control of Animal Farm. Animal Farm is controlled by two major pigs, Snowball and Napoleon, in which after a little while, Snowball gets kicked out of the farm, leaving Napoleon by himself being able to control the farm. By the end of the book, the farm looks no different as it did from the start.
Persepolis is a book about the writer Marjane Satrapi. I don't know how to say that.
It's fine. We can roll with it.
Yeah. And it's her struggles as she moves multiple times and has to deal with the revolution through the book. At first, when she's younger, the system of the veils were just being inputted, and they weren't and the kids, of course, being young, did not understand what they meant. What are they? So, but they were forced to wear them anyways. That was practically the start of the revolution, I think. Like, it's just like small turning big. And I'm just gonna call her Margie. Margie, she first wants to become a prophet. And she wants to, making sure everyone has cars and everyone, old people cannot hurt, which is silly, but it's a child. Of course. And throughout the book, you see things get more radical with what's his name? It's in the early part of the book. Man, I forgot his name.
Casual.
Dude, I actually forgot his name.
That's fine. That's fair. While you're looking for the name,
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, never mind. We got it.
It is. Wait, it's back here. Never mind. You guys can go ahead.
So, Animal Farm is about the Russian Revolution and a similar point to it. And the Persepolis is about the Iranian Revolution?
Yep, Iranian
Revolution.
And there's a lot of similarities just because they are both revolutions in structure. What I think is very interesting, though, is how a book portrays both revolutions, because they're both portrayed in different ways. Animal Farm portrays it as a separate fairy tale, as the author describes it, but not one of the normal ones. It's sort of mystical in some aspects, but very grounded in others. And I think that's a very interesting approach to take to a real-life revolution. And they show the hardships of the revolution. In the start of Animal Farm, things seemingly go well, but as the sort of newness of the revolution dies down, more and more problems start to show. We start to see the relapse in the revolution, and that's where Animal Farm really hits its strides, I think, is when it talks about the relapse of the revolution, because it starts going downhill. The system that they make is not sustainable for them.
The revolution itself is pretty much over within the first 3 chapters. But after the first 3 chapters, the whole book is pretty much just the relapse. It goes from being this perfect place where everybody's happy and the animals are living happily to a place where it's pretty much no better than when Jones was still the head of the Manor Farm.
And how's Persepolis? What's its take on the revolutionary structure?
The way the revolution is shown in Persepolis is more through the eyes when it's convenient to the story, because the story being a what's it called?
Graphic novel?
By a bio.
Oh, a biography?
Yeah, a biography about
Or an autography?
Margie Jane's life.
Yeah.
And it's more focused on her, like how her family was affected by the revolution and how things changed, which is humongous. A lot changed. After the Shah's reign, which was the Shah caused, I believe, a lot of murders towards the end of his reign, because like there were massacres after massacre. And it started after this event called Black Friday, which is very ironic to our Black Friday. And eventually he was gone, and it was one of the biggest celebrations in the entire history of Iran.
That brings a very interesting similarity between the two, and that's the Relapse Massacre. In Animal Farm, they also do that. After the relapse, after Napoleon takes control, he massacres everyone who either speaks out against him or speaks in favor of Snowball. So it shows a lot of similarities between like the way these dictators think after these revolutions, and how, I mean, it's just not sustainable. Once you have like outcriers, the system isn't powerful enough, because they just spent the whole time revolting to like be able to police and have free thoughts. Yeah,
but before this, there was a long line of people demonstrating against him, which caused Black Friday, which was a massive massacre, and then just kept on going up until people were so fed up with him that they tore down his statues and burned pictures of him and stuff, effigies.
And we see a similarity between that with the, kind of funny to say this out loud, but the chickens in Animal Farm, how they revolted against Napoleon because they weren't being fed enough. And we see the response to both is very similar. To keep in power, they have to show that they have power, and they massacre. So I think it's a very interesting similarity.
Yeah, it is.
So I think now we have to compare it to what actually happened, and I think the fact that Napoleon is supposed to represent Joseph Stalin, it works in such a really good way, because the switch from Leon Trotsky to Joseph Stalin was not very smooth, but it was still a transition, and you see that a lot in Animal Farm when Snowball gets, rushed away by the dogs, which are a metaphor for the KGB. Snowball gets, basically exiled, and Napoleon comes in and starts doing things Napoleon's way, which is no better than Jones, which is supposed to be Tsar Nicholas II. So it works in quite a good way, because it clashes, but it also flows. And I see a lot of similarities and a lot of perfect parallels with the book and real life.
And I will say one interesting thing about Napoleon in the book is his manipulative nature, even though he's shown to not be very intelligent. We see him a lot of times making these very big, rash decisions that end up for the worse for Animal Farm, but Napoleon's able to save face by blaming this or that, or blaming all his problems on Snowball, which is a very neat parallel to the revolution, how they pretty much just blame all their problems on others,
In my book, recently, this was, the veil wasn't a completely you have to wear this. There was a big fight against the veil, or there was lots of, bickering between the two groups of modernism and the veil. The veil was very religious people that wanted to remain to religious books and believe that women should hide their bodies for men, I think, which is very sexist. at least I believe that's what it was. And the quote unquote modern woman is people that do what they want, I suppose. But there in the book on page 75, it shows example of how the differences between the fundamentalist and the modern woman. The Reggie won't see it, but
Yeah,
this is what it looks like.
You can look in the book if you
Yeah.
want to see. But yes, I can see it and I understand. I get it. Yeah, no, I like how the books really compare and contrast to both each other and the revolution. And I mean, it just shows a pattern in revolutions, you know? It shows that while a lot of them may seem different, a lot of the things under the surface end up the same. Always ends up clashing until one group decides to overtake the other. And it's a very interesting pattern.
So at the start of Animal Farm, like the first 3 chapters, all of the stages of the revolution have basically been completed except for the relapse, considering 90% of the Russian Revolution is just the relapse. So how does that contrast with Persepolis? How does the book go
Yeah.
through? Does all of the stages of the revolution happen
No.
before the first chapter, or
Not
does
at
it
all.
does it go like does it
It's
spread
slower.
out?
Like during
around?
the book, it's literally almost entirely radical, the radical phase.
Oh,
Because
interesting.
it's just the fight between the modern and the fundamentalist ideals, and in the end, the fundamentalist ideals win. And although modern are still like fighting in small ways, like having their hair show a little bit in their veils and stuff like that, in the end, the fundamentalists have won, and it's very hard to elaborate, but like early in the book, 73, 2 pages before, it talks about the fundamentalist man they're closing down universities because they would, in quotes, better to have no students at all than to educate future imperialists. I'm not sure what I think about that.
That's kind of striking. That is a pretty interesting point.
They have so much control over everything, the fundamentalists, and it's kind of a struggle for people that are quote unquote modern to fight back, because they only have really demonstrating and stuff like showing their hair, a little like bits of their hair in veils and things.
Yeah, no. And again, you see stuff like that, and you see when Snowball gets like sent off. I mean, it's like a big moment because it's like you wouldn't expect it. You know, he's just so easily able to be wiped from the memory of Animal Farm, and it shows that under these political figures have a lot more power than you'd think during the revolution, during and after, even during the relapse. It's crazy.
During the book, Iraq actually attacks Iran, which makes things significantly worse for those living in Iran, because like they're getting bombed and stuff like that. And even in the book, you can see how this affects the main character by
No, you keep
No,
by,
you can keep going. Sorry.
by one of her Jewish friends getting bombed, and like that one of her neighbors got bombed, and she could visibly see her arm sticking out of the fire, which was very traumatizing. I assume it's right here actually.
Interesting. Well,
So to close off, like, what are some final thoughts about the revolution? Like, what are your guys' thoughts on each of the revolutions respectively? And let's start with Persepolis, and then we'll move on to Animal Farm.
I think that this was a pretty bad, like the relapse. The book is mostly focused on relapsing and things while it can, but mostly it's. I think that the book is amazing, of course. The way it tells the story of Iran's like struggles and conflicts of the revolution is good. What was the prompt?
what's your thoughts on the revolution, like as a whole?
Yeah. Like,
I
just
think
even
that
the revolution itself.
it ended up as a total negative, but it feels like it progressed the story of Iran more, although in the end it kind of remained as a negative, because I'm not sure, but I believe the bail system is still a big thing in Iran.
Yeah, I believe so.
Iran?
Also.
And that's a negative for women, and it's like women are really oppressed in Iran.
Interesting. That's an interesting take on it.
What I'm trying to say is, I guess the revolution
Yeah.
still heavily impacts Iran to this day.
Yeah, interesting.
All right, Tegan,
I can
what's
go
your
next.
thoughts? What's your thoughts on Animal Farm?
Yeah, I think the book's very
And
interesting.
the Russian Revolution
And the
as a
Russian
whole.
Revolution. I personally think the book is actually kind of. I like the way it's like written. I think it's written very. It uses words very like meaningfully. Like everything that's written, it's written for a reason. I do like that with
Yeah.
the book. I think it tells a very specific point in the Russian Revolution. Obviously, before the relapse, there was a lot of things that happened to sort of circle into the Russian Revolution. It was a very interesting one. That happened. I mean, obviously, it was something that was going to happen. I mean, the Tsar was just. It was at a point where, I mean, everyone was poor. They were indentured. They'd been freed of their, what was it called? Serfdom, I think, or something.
Something like that, yeah.
They were freed, but they had to pay money to the people who they were freed
It's
from.
like they
So-
paid the price eventually.
Yeah, so even then, it was like they weren't really free. They still had to work. They were still taxed.
It's like moving from one
we
master to
could
the next.
actually
It was
kind of
pretty
tie that
much.
back to
The
Which
French
revolution?
Revolution?
No,
Oh,
the-
Haitian Revolution.
the Haitian one.
Yeah,
because
you're
they
right.
still had to pay
You're right.
back
And actually-
France.
Even the French Revolution sort of had something similar to that, and I think a lot of revolutions go that way, where sort of just you end up right where you were, and I think that's pretty much what happened for the what is it called, Russian Revolution, because the one big thing that did sort of happen is after everything was said and done, they did try to industrialize. And that's what the windmills in the book symbolize. It was them being heavy into industry. But what essentially happened to the people is they moved from being enslaved and working on the fields and being enslaved and working in factories. So I think the revolution, it's hard to say it was a net negative, but it could have gone a whole lot better.
Yeah, I see that completely, and it comes to a point where it's like, my thoughts are pretty similar to yours, Tegan, where it's just, it's the whole revolution as a whole is pretty much a negative, because it ended up right where we started, with just a different person, moved from master to master, and the only real loser in the situation were the animals that were manipulated and taken advantage of. So it's interesting like that, and I think the book itself, it does a really good job at capturing the points of the Russian Revolution, and it puts the points of the Russian Revolution into perspective in a way that's not not realistic, but it's like not all real. It's like because at the end it's like animals on a farm, and it's not the Russian people in Russia, and when the animals die, it's a lot different from hearing the mass killings that happened during the Russian Revolution, and it's because it's in the book only a handful of animals died.
Yeah.
Right? Only it's said only somewhere between 10 and 20 animals have died.
Yeah,
I don't even think it's that high. So it's
something around that.
So it's somewhere around that smaller number, and so it symbolizes the hundreds of people that died in the Russian Revolution during the long time of it, because the Russian Revolution, though the actual points of the revolution weren't that long, it was 1917 to 1924. What happened with Stalin is Stalin reigned up until the 50s, and Stalin still did some not good things up
Very
until
true.
the 50s. So it's the relapse happens throughout multiple years after the whole revolution is said and done. Like how in chapter 3 the farm's completely taken over, but Snowball gets thrown out, and that's the whole relapse phase. That same thing happened in like the real world where 1924 came around, or the 30s or something, whatever year, Stalin came into power. That was kind of the whole relapse, the actual Russian Revolution, where Stalin still killed a lot more people than needed to die. So I think the book does a really good job of portraying that without making it too real, almost.
Yeah.
I wish I could say the same for my book, as in, it feels very, it's very real, especially with the drawings. Like, early in the book, they give you a very, like, startling, like,
Images?
view
Oh.
of what it looked like, what it could be to imagine, because people got burnt alive inside of a theater. It was like 200 people got burnt alive, and the police let them die. Like, they refused to let anyone help them. And everyone knew the reason why this happened. I could try, like, this photo here, too. That's also pretty haunting. It's just dead bodies.
Interesting. Yeah.
This bunch
Very
of photos.
stylized.
It's like, it's very stylized, but like you can tell
What's happening?
what they're trying to get at, and that's what the start. Yeah, see, look at that. Look at this. That is
Ooh.
terrifying.
That's pretty terrifying.
Yeah, like there may be little words, but like if the pictures really help get point across.
Interesting. I guess because that uses pictures more to get the point across, while Animal Phone uses more words.
Yeah, and like the metaphors of it.
But definitely.
I think that's really all we
Yeah.
have time for, and we explained our thoughts.
Yeah.
We gave the story synopsis. We've compared them a little bit. We've obviously gone over the differences and the similarities, like I've just said. And so,
I didn't even go through half the book.
True. That's
but
sometimes it's a big book.
it's all right. It's all
We
right.
got-
We got through most of the major talking points. And so to reiterate, for credit and for just the sake of
To
it,
conclude.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Tegan.
I'm Dom. I'm the outset of the names. Like,
It's all right. All right.
We're
Well,
TTD.
that's
I
it. Yeah, you know what? We're TTD now.
Ooh.
Goodbye.
Total drama.